Thanks to my Ko-fi supporters that make these videos possible. You can also get a deck review on my weekly Tuesday and Sunday streams. It's the best way to support the channel.
Hello everyone. As we all know, the community conversation, civil war? I don't know what to call it, but it's been surprisingly heated. Anyway, hybrid mana cards is all the rage right now. I've already done a stream with Mauled talking about it, so that's not what this video is going to be about. Today, we're talking purely about deck building implications of this change, what cards win, and about what cards are the most hype for this change. Once again, this video is not going to be talking about whether or not the change should or shouldn't happen. It's entirely talking about all the interesting deck building ramifications if the change occurs. So yeah, get your buy list ready on the side, and I guess let's talk cards. Starting with, of course, the largest winners, companions. Karuga can now be in your mono green ramp deck, or Gruul. Lurrus can now be companioned in your Kythian white weenie deck. You can have General Crete become a Goblin Perforos with an Obosh deck. And Lutri still banned. Truly, to list all the companion ramifications this change will have would be a video in and of itself, but yeah, companions are way easier now, which is very exciting for deck building. Next up, Sunforger. Wait, what? Yep, Sunforger. Sunforger decks no longer have to dip into Naya to run Wheel of Sun and Moon. No longer do you need to run Tithe in your Sunforger package to then grab Mistveil Plains to clunkily loop your Sunforger stuff. I mean, you probably should still do that, but your deck has a way better way now to loop those spells forever. This too means something like Chance for Glory also gets easier to loop with something like Angel's Grace for infinite turns. And on top of all this too, Kellen Fey-Blooded gets stronger as a ripple of all of this, as it's one of the best commanders for a Sunforger deck, because it can tutor it directly. I mean, Brunor Battlehammer is good too, which works in a busted way with Leonin Shikari to massively reduce the mana that Sunforger needs to do its bullshit, but alas, we should probably move on. 3 commanders that win heavily from this change are as follows: Rien, Angel of Rebirth, Lila, Undefeated Slickshot, and General Ferris Rakurik. Rien lends herself well to sneak attack strategies. I covered such in a previous video about underplayed commanders, but she's a bit strapped for choices at the moment. This hybrid mana change not only gives her a larger hope for the future, but presently gives her options like Doomgape, Sludge Titan, and Jin Illuminatus as sneak attack payoffs. Funnily enough, she'd also get Yorion. No, not as a companion, of course. Sadly, that still doesn't work, but as an option to sneak attack out to flicker your other sneak attack toys to keep them forever, and then bam, it goes back into hand. As for Lila, we get some interesting options for her spell-slinging repertoire. Flotsam Jetsam is technically after this change a mono blue card, and you can cast Flotsam and then plot Jetsam out of exile later. As far as red spells, Mana Morphose is neutral the first time around, and then Mana Positive from this plot zone second time around. Master Warcraft is also just straight up silly to get twice, and Waves of Aggression becomes a more flexible World at War the first time you cast it from your hand. General Ferris is actually probably the biggest winner here, especially for a more tempo-based game plan. He still benefits from all the spells that Lila gets, but also gets access to Judge's Familiar, Dryad Militant, Figure of Fable, Gallant Citizen, and Spider Manifestation. There's also far more cheap drops that bring a golem along with them. Alright, let's have a talk now about some funny cards that are going to be splashy with a swath of different strategies out there. Black Sacrifice decks get to pack a new Living Death adjacent effect with Pyrrhic Revival, and that can even be comboed with a Kulrath Knight to not let the opposing creatures that enter ever interact with combat in any way. Hilarious. And speaking of Black Sack, you'll probably have a new best friend in Fiend Artisan, who can sack your creatures to tutor directly into play with efficiency that we've only ever seen on the effects of Lively Dirge. Token decks in blue and white like Adeline or Talrand now get access to Mirror Weave. No longer will you be alone with Candlekeep Inspiration, my merfolk wizard friend. You'll have a second option to turn those unblocked drakes into lethal. Oh, and Biomass Mutation too, huh? Flash-centric decks like Errant and Giada, or even more hilariously, Teferi Mage of Zalfir, will now get access to Cunning Nightbonder, which not only ramps you, but also makes those flash spells uncounterable. Hydra gamers like Gargos and Zaxara will now get Roshin Miranderer to pump their X-Spell noodles even more. -1/-1 counter decks in Golgari, Mono Black, or Dimir. like Hepatra, Yawgmoth, and Skeleton Ship, get to experience the joys of everlasting torment that they didn't get access to before, in addition to the previously named Kolrath Knight. Good old Scorpion God also gets in on the fun here with access to Scar Scale Ritual. Hogak is now available to Selesnya Token gamers and Black Power Matters gamers. Do with that what you will, you Susser Secundi, disciple of Freyleigh's obsessed freaks. Also on the topic of Power Mattering in green, Cold-Eyed Selkie is now the perfect recipient of Power Matters pumps in green or Gruul decks. Shieldred the Apocalypse is another winner here, with access to another Howling Mind that pings you with Spiteful Visions, and also access to Dream Salvage if they're rocking a discard sub-theme. On the topic of Mono Black as well, you also get to loop Worm Harvest with Dakmor Salvage once a turn. Could be silly to do with Iara, for instance. Maybe with a Humidity and Hatchery in the mix, and suddenly you're Mono Black land tokens. Okay, it's time to talk about some silly stuff now. Leyline of the Guild Pact is now legal for any green deck, and also is legal for any non-green 4-color deck. This also makes Bloom Tender and Fabral Elder viable even if it's a low-color deck, if it's built around getting Leyline of the Guild Pact consistently, which, let's face it, a lot of decks would be interested in doing. Remember Rien? That's probably already tutoring for Sneak Attack too? Plenty more examples though. The rest of the MKM split card cycle that Flotsam Jetsam belongs to is now also monocolor viable, but so too is the new Capenna hybrid rare legendary cycle as well. 3-color cards possibly becoming monocolor has some really interesting ramifications. Ognis is available for Rakdos Treasure, and Evelyn is now available for Rakdos Vampires, or of course, Edgar Markov decks. Talas can go insane in Dimir discard decks like Ramirez de Pietro or Green Goblin. Sorry, I mean Fleam. And good old Rigo will definitely see some play in White Weenie decks alongside maybe a Godhead of Awe to shrink things down. Just a thought. As far as MKM cards, pickings are a bit slim, but Flotsam Jetsam will be right at home in any big spell deck like my Carmella list, especially ones already running Breach the Multiverse and or Waterlogged Teachings. Yes, the Flotsam instant half works with Waterlogged Teachings. Push-pull will be going in my Orzhov Reanimator deck that uses Egrix the Bile Bulwark to bolus the Citadel all over the place while being a removal spell early. And the last of these cards to be a viable include in decks will be Cease and Desist, that can cycle and Grave Hate early, or make an artifact or enchantment player late cry. Of course, Waves of Aggression has been talked about when it comes to hybrid weirdness. Mono White doesn't have extra combat spells at all. Not yet, anyway. Allegedly, they're tertiary, according to Mark Rosewater. I mean, it makes sense with White getting board White Double Strike, which is adjacent, but regardless, it's here for real now. Before you. Unrestricted. Imagine boards of spirits that get to crash out twice, stacking melee triggers from Drogskull reinforcements and Sky Hunter Strike Force. Phew. That's all the interesting highlights I found from this hybrid mana change. Tell me, what are some of your favorite cards that got changed from this? I don't even necessarily mean just hybrid mana cards either. Tell me about your Lilas and General Ferrises. Any card or deck idea you had that has had its context shifted by this change. Let me know all of it down in the comments below. And until next time, bye! Okay, P.S. Here's an Earnest talking about hybrid mana a little bit. I don't want to spark too much conversation about this in the comments or anything, but I'll just give you my point of view about it. For me, what I really like about this change and the way I justify it beyond just it's slippery sloping into Phyrexian mana and two-face cards with color identifiers on the back like Elbrus the Binding Blade or Flip Avacyn, is that hybrid mana is meant to be either color, the design of the card. It doesn't have to do with the actual mana ease of casting it. Dismember is a black card even though every color can use it. Pact of Negation is a blue effect even though every color can use it. And therefore in my mind that doesn't necessarily fit the identity part, whereas a hybrid card does. Now, of course, there's some outliers like Waves of Aggression or whatever that feel a little bit strange, but overall, it's true that hybrid mana is one or the other in terms of their design, their feel. So that edges out Phyrexian mana, it edges out the color indicator weirdness that Flip Avacyn has, all that. But another argument I hear very frequently against it is that it's very complicated. But I feel like a lot of the arguments that it's complicated is based on color identity being one thing for deck building and another thing for gameplay rules. And the thing is that color is like already kind of divorced from color identity. Let's think about Devoid, for instance. And that's a little bit of a niche example, but Devoid is in fact a weird color pie weirdness thing where it does have the identity, but it doesn't have the color in game. Simultaneously, something like Kineso's Priest of Thassa during deck building is a Simic card, but in game isn't green for something like Mercfiend Liege, like it wouldn't get the green pump from that. So already these are sort of confusing things where the color identity is divorced from the color of the card. So a card having extra colors in game versus in deck building already kind of fits the bill for the strangeness of color identity. At the end of the day, this is a format for fun. I feel like this change is very fun as highlighted by this video. And yeah, that's it. I don't think it's that big of a deal one way or another, but I would like to cast Flotsam Jetsam in Cormella, so please give me it.